Are you stressed by what's going on outside of you? It's almost impossible not to be on some level. So I want to give you tips from my Freedom from Negative Thinking program. And we'll start today with one tip that can help you override whatever chaos is going on outside of you. Hi, I'm Karen Garvey. I use my intuition to help people find more happiness in their lives. And I'm motivated today to talk to you because there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, and there are some ways that you can apply strategies to help you stay calmer, more peaceful, and more happy during the chaos. No matter what's going on outside, there's always going to be some trauma. There's always going to be some alluring drama that wants to pull you in. But when you learn tools that help you override those periods, you can use those tools over and over and over again, regardless of what's going on in the universe. So let's start by talking about how can you adjust your perspective? How can you adjust what you're focusing on in order to help you feel more calm and feel more peace and feel more yourself like you want to be, instead of tumbling in the waves as they're appearing. One of the things you have to recognize is that we tend to let our thinking have free rein. It's like a rebel that lives within us, and it takes over. And when you let that rebel take over, it's going to go to wherever it's been trained to go. And if that happens to be looking at things that are negative, if it's being drawn into like looking at a car wreck when you're walking by, or into a certain news channel that's very sensational, if you have trained your mind into finding an appeal, it's going to become fixated on that process of negative experience. So the first step is to say, how can I break that? How can I break that cycle? My thoughts do not own me, but I own my thoughts. So let's think of different ways that we can get in control and be the director of where that thought energy goes. That's what we aim to do. So first, fundamentally, it's important that you recognize that you can't use your mind to harness your mind. To me, that's a little bit like using chewing gum to remove chewing gum. They're just going to stick together and they're not going to be of any use. So you have to find another technique other than your own thinking to release your spiraling thinking. So the first thing to remember in becoming free from negative thought is that, as I said, you can't use your mind to unstick your mind. So instead, we want to bring in a different component, and the body is a useful way. So we want to bring something physical in to remind us to break the cycle of the mind. So most of the freedom from negative thinking techniques that I have developed have some kind of physical component or some way that we're moving our bodies in order to break that trap. So the very first one that I can give you, which is pretty simple, is actually to move your body, to move your mind. And movement is very simple because all you have to do is do anything different than sitting still and thinking. You can stand in front of a mirror and smile. You can get up and do jumping jacks. You can jump down to the floor and just sit in a yoga position for a few minutes. Moving your body means you can just walk outdoors if you're indoors, and you can, listen to birds or do something and watch a leaf blow in the breeze. But moving your body is not that difficult. It's a way to get yourself unstuck from your thinking. In moving your body is not hard to do, even if you're in an environment where you feel like you're trapped. So you might be in the workspace, or you might be in a situation where there's more people around, but you can still move. You can tap your foot, you can move your shoulders, you can put a song in your head and feel the rhythm. You can smile to yourself, you can smile at somebody nearby. So this particular tool of moving your body to move your thoughts is useful, and you can unpack it anywhere, anytime. I don't find myself being trapped by negative thinking at all anymore, because I've trained myself for many, many years to release myself of the patterns that so many people have developed. And they really are just habits. Don't think of yourself as flawed or inadequate. Just see that as being a byproduct of culture and the experience of being in a world where we encourage fear in one another. It's not your predisposition to feel negative, it's a learned behavior. So since I have unlearned that behavior, I don't find that I have to necessarily move my body to move my thoughts, but there are some times where I might find myself being a little bored or disinterested. And so the idea of moving, I can do that just to get myself feeling more energy or more alive, because I do understand that this lifetime we get one chance at it, and I don't want to spend hours drifting through my own feeling of boredom even, let alone my own feeling of negativity. So an example would be during the pandemic, I was in an airport, and there was social distancing, and there was masks, and there were gloves, and there were a lot of unhappy looking people, despite the masks that might have been hiding if they were smiling underneath. There were no smiles in the eyes. And it was gloomy. I was filled with a sense of anticipation of an adventure, but the atmosphere was gloomy, and it was a long wait. And eventually I just said, well, this is not working for me. So I got up and I stood at another place where you board a plane, right? So I stood there instead, and I just did like toe lifts, and I moved my arms, and I just felt good, and I smiled underneath my mask. And it was interesting, just the standing and the shifting of my body and feeling muscles. I felt so different, and I recognized then, looking around the crowd, that everybody was experiencing what they were expecting to experience, and I was opting out of experiencing their expectation. Now, moving your body to move your mind, I've talked about how simple it is to do anywhere, anytime, but there are bigger ways to do this too. If you have a perpetual crisis in your life or in the world around you, or you have a big transition going on in your life and you're moving over months into a new situation, that could be scary. So moving in the moment might not be enough to sustain you from kind of slipping into pessimism or scary thoughts or disempowerment. So during periods like that, or any time, it's fundamentally helpful. If you want to help your thoughts, then move on a more regular basis. Find an exercise program that's appropriate for you. I find that even just walking for 20 minutes is a good way to kick off that feeling. Dancing to 2 or 3 songs in front of a mirror is a great way to feel your strength and your energy. I'm not going to begin to tell you the benefits of exercise. That's not my place, and I'm not trained, or I'm not an expert. But what I can tell you from personal experience, that when I do not move my body in a healthful way that's appropriate for me, by day 3, I can feel a sense of depletion or pessimism creeping in. Since I've put so much effort into eliminating those moments, I've decided that that's not an option for me in the future. So I understand that my bare minimum necessary that's appropriate for keeping my mind more clear and more optimistic, that it's important that I move my body in a healthful way, probably 30 to 40 minutes, a minimum of 3 times a week. That's what works for me. Why don't you experiment and figure out what works for you? And in the meantime, recognize that even the smallest movement that you participate in on the spur of the moment or for a planned activity will help you to manage when there are big challenges outside of you. So here's an example of a way that you can move your body very, very quickly to move your thoughts. Just get into a standing position virtually anywhere, even if you have to separate and go in a hallway if you're with people. But just stand up, and the idea is you're going to stretch until your palms touch the ceiling or the sky. If you're comfortable, you can stand on your toes, but if you feel you have more balance, then feel free to keep your heels down. But just stand and feel a stretch and put those palms up to the sky. Reach high, feel it. When you're doing this in a way that really gives you a stretch, you'll almost feel an energy ball, almost like the universe is touching your hands. 10 seconds is all it takes, and you can feel the energy of the universe right there in the palm of your hand. Feel that. Feel that energy. Take it in. Only 10 seconds and you will move your thoughts out and instead feel a sense of being connected with the universe. If you've enjoyed the tip that I've given today, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my YouTube channel.